Well, I mean, what we're really describing is in this case, two very distinct forms of perception, right? Two very distinct stages of awakening. And one of those, often, that occurs for people is really the total transcendent stage. They wake up and out of the self structure, the ego structure. They realize that's not really what I am. And then whatever concept they use to define what they are isn't particularly important necessarily. What's important is they've woken up from the egoic structure, and also even the physical body, the way, and of course then you could put gender into that too, all the ways that we define ourselves. And so a waking up is really, it's a shift of perception, is really what's occurring. And the perception they really often shift into is the real transcendent perception, which is, I'm not that. Now I'm this, whether we call this pure consciousness or being or whatever the words are. And that's the way, I didn't say that this evening, but then we get the world down to a nice manageable duality. We have the nothingness of pure awareness or pure being, and then everything else, right? And everything else is right down to your human form, to all the other forms in existence and your day-to-day life, and then you experientially you get everything down to the formless and form, and it's very liberating because the realm of the formless, the transcendent, it's of another dimension than the world of form, and so it's not affected by it ultimately, and it doesn't. It's not concerned. It's not worried about things. Very, very liberating. Very freeing. But if one gets very, very deeply into that transcendent place and then gets stuck, because the ego actually can make its way in there and kind of go, ooh, this is what I always wanted. I always wanted to be safe and to be untouched and to find a place where I could never be harmed. And okay, unconsciously it can kind of go, okay, I'll be this, because this is safe and this is beautiful and it's transcendent. And so you can get stuck there. One of the symptoms of where you get stuck there is your relative life might start to fall apart. You know, your relationships, your work life, your lots of things. Because most of you won't be engaged. You know, I've heard people say, you know, about their partners, like they're just not here anymore. It's like there's 5% of them that's here, and the other 90%, I don't know where they are, but they're not here. And things start to, you know, when you don't give time and attention, they start to fall apart. So it can be stuck, but even if you weren't stuck, it's just a particular stage of spiritual development, right? The totally transcendent state. But one of the indications is that it's not real, not ultimately the reality, is because it's not whole. It's got two things, you know, formless and form. And it's not whole, and reality is always whole. It's all-inclusive. And so a deeper state of maturity is when we really mature into what, I even hesitate to say the words because they're misleading too, but what unity really is. Which means you're discovering then what this is. What is this? Okay, I woke up from this, great, but what is this? What is this world of form? What actually really is it? We've given it so many names. What is it? And that can lead to or help open the way to a deeper state of realization where the very concepts of form and formless all don't make sense anymore. Because then the formless is form and form is the formless. And it's just actually one thing appearing two different ways. And that happens in the level of realization or change of perception. But it also has some very important consequences or implications when it comes to living your life. Because then all of a sudden, bam, there you are again. right? You're back, you're back, you're here. You're not out there, transcended. You're actually here now. But the difference is, once you've made this sort of metaphorical journey, that you're here in a way where you're not afraid anymore. Because you know there's nothing to lose. You know there's nothing to gain. And that's no longer a place that you hold on to buffer yourself against life. If it's really so true there's nothing to lose or gain, then why would one hold back? Why not engage, you see? And then that becomes a deeper, more mature state of spirituality, almost where the whole notion of spirituality starts to collapse, right? Into sort of just one movement, one happening. And I think it's sort of very, very important, especially now, because more and more people are having these really beautiful transcendent experiences. And now that some people have been hanging out in them for a long enough time, there's a second stage of sort of maturity that's wanting to happen everywhere I go, you know? But to really get this to come full circle from transcendence over here all the way to completeness, the transcendent realization is, I call it a freebie, right? You don't have to do anything. You don't have to earn it. In fact, the only thing you have to do is stop trying to earn it and deserve it and attain it. And it's just sort of, you relax all that and it can come. The other one is different, because in order for emptiness or being or spirit to really function here through this vehicle, it can't do so in a clear way unless a lot of the stuff that you transcended gets flushed out of the system, right? So when you transcend it, you're just beyond it. But to function here, being beyond it isn't good enough, right? Then there's a transformation that actually happens here in the world of, right down to the world of form. And that, of course, means all of your, whatever psychological hang-ups you may still have had, that you transcended. When spirit comes back, sometimes, there they are waiting for you. And those then have to be seen. They have to be also resolved in a more unified vision. But that's a part of it that rarely happens all at once. That's a part of the maturing that's often, for most people, unfolds over time. And for some, it's much easier than for others. You just never know.